It's time for This Week in WordPress, episode number 177, entitled I Let Out a Bit of Liquid. It was recorded on Monday, the 6th of September 2021. My name's Nathan Wrigley, and as always, I'll be joined by my co-host, Paul Lacey, but also this week by Rob Cairns, who's on the show for the first time. There's an awful lot to talk about, as there always is. First up, Beaver Builder has got a 2.5 release update. There's absolutely boatloads going on in there, so if you're a Beaver Builder user, look out for that. Also, Automattic has acquired Frontity. It seems that they've done it for the people, so that they can invest their time into Gutenberg's UI and UX. We discuss a Justin Tadlock piece over at WP Tavern about the need to market your plugin if you have one, and also how the Gutenberg team contributors are getting organized about their block-based navigation. We also have a bit of a plugin roundup. We talk about a new plugin called Social Ninja. We also talk about Cadence being updated and Elementor. They've got some nice new features for you this week. And then we go on to show some of our pick of the weeks. Mine is all about animals and how funny they can look. Paul's is all about the largest console controller that you can possibly have. And Rob is showing us Editor Plus. It's all coming up next on This Week in WordPress. This Week in WordPress was brought to you by A/B Split Test. Do you want to set up your A/B split tests in record time? The new A/B split test plugin for WordPress will have you up and running in a couple of minutes. Use your existing pages and test anything against anything else. Buttons, images, headers, rows, anything. And the best part is that it works with Elementor, Beaver Builder and the WordPress block editor. Go check it out and get a free demo at absplittest.com. Hello once more. What day is it? It's Monday, the 6th of September. It's always Monday when we do this show. I should know that bit. But it's the 6th of September. It's This Week in WordPress number 177. As always, joined by some lovely people. Paul Lacey, as is usual. How are you doing, Paul?
Doing all right. I'm too hot for my hat today. It's hot here.
Oh.
So I'm going to have to... Fortunately, I've cut my hair yesterday.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. You've been cutting that hair so well for so many years now, for as long as I've known you. You've done a really stellar job doing the haircut. It's not that hot here, I have to say. I could easily get into a complaint about the weather, but I'm not going to, because we've got better things to do. For example, one of the better things to do is to introduce Rob. Rob Cairns is joining us all the way from, I actually don't know the town or city that you live in, Rob. So where are you?
Toronto, Ontario, Canada. So there you go. Hi, Nathan. Hey, Paul.
I did know that. I'd completely forgotten. I don't know if you want to do an introduction for us, Paul. I don't know if there was anything in the show notes there. There is. Do you want to do the intro? Go for it.
Indeed, yeah. So I know Rob mainly from Facebook and Twitter. And this is the first time we've spoken in voice mode or video mode or anything, which is probably long overdue. And really pleased to meet you, Rob, properly. And so in terms of who you are, according to your bio here, you are the chief creator of Amazing Ideas at Stunning Digital Marketing and the host and creator of the SDM Show podcast. And so could you tell us, what does SDM stand for? I'm guessing the M is marketing, but...
SDM, short for Stunning Digital Marketing Podcast. So...
Well, that makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah. We're off to a great start, aren't we? We've already talked about the weather and
my skills of observation are just on fire today. So.
It's going to be a day.
Yeah, it is going to be one of those days. During the preamble to the show before we click live, Rob's connection sort of dropped in and out a bit, so we'll be mindful of that. If Rob has to disappear for a minute, he knows that he can come back, but we'll carry on regardless. The chat is going absolutely ballistic already. Wow, it's never normally this busy. I wonder if somebody's accidentally put their cat on the return key and it's just constantly putting stuff in, but there seems to be an awful lot going on. Before I get stuck into that, though, a few bits and pieces, bits of housekeeping. We We'd very much like it for you to make comments as we talk about things during the show. If you're in our Facebook group, which a proportion of you I'm sure will be, you need to go to chat.restream.io/FB. And if you go there, you can give Restream, which is the platform that we use, you can give them permission to let us know who you are. It'll show us your avatar and it'll show us your name. Otherwise, you just come across as this anonymous Facebook icon and it just says something like Facebook user. So I would encourage you to do that. And if you want to make a comment, just drop it in there. We'll show a proportion of them as the day, as the hour or so goes on. That'd be really nice. And let's see who's in the house already. Yeah, here's a perfect example. This is we've got a Facebook user here, and I can't see who you are. That's kind of curious. I can't make some of these go live because they appear to be just made up of icons. So somebody is sharing like cat emojis and things like that, and it would appear if there's no text in your message. That's a new one. If there's no text in your message, I can't show it. So let's have a look. Who have we got here? It looks like Devinda might be here. Devinda, where are your thumbs? I don't know what that means. Maya Longcar from GoDaddy. She's joining us. Thank you very much. I made a comment about Paul's hair earlier, and this Facebook user is enjoying Paul's hair. But anyway, there's a whole bunch in there. Oh, and Todd.
Somebody else is not enjoying my hair and says that they can't. They're struggling to cope without the cap. So if I did this, would that help? And you could just imagine that it's there. Yeah.
So what Paul's done, for those of you listening to this, Paul has just sort of moved his camera so that he's cut off at the eyes. Anything above the eyes is off the screen. Yeah, that's great.
That looks silly.
Yeah, that's better. That's fine. But if you feel like going and getting your hat, that's fine. This is a nice comment. It just says, Rob is stunning. What a nice thing for somebody to write, whoever that is.
Thank
you. That's lovely.
And someone else has said Rob is awesome. So there's definitely some Rob love coming here.
Good grief.
Hey.
Yeah, okay. That's great. Well, let's get stuck into the news for this week, if that's all right with you guys. As I said, keep the comments coming. Actually, if you feel like it, just whilst you're doing whatever you're doing, I imagine most of you are watching this at the same time as doing work in the background and so on. Just pause what you're doing for a second. Take the link, wpbuilds.com/live. Go and chuck it in Facebook. See if you can get a bunch of other people to drop into our chat whilst this is going on. We never say that. And I always think at the end, I should have said, go and share it whilst we're actually live. But I'm not very good at marketing. So there we go. Right. Let's share the screen. This is our website, wpbuilds.com. If you fancy keeping in touch with the stuff that we do, go to this little box here, fill out the subscribe box, and we'll keep you abreast of everything that we produce each week. We do this on a Monday, podcast on a Thursday, and a few bits and pieces as the week goes on sometimes as well. We've got a load of stuff for you this week, more than is typical, so we'll try and get through as much of it as we can. We've cherry-picked what we think are the finer bits of WordPress news for the week, and the first one, it probably should go to the top of that piece. I'm going to throw this one straight in Paul's lap because I don't know if Rob, you noticed this. Look, Paul gets an actual mention in this piece somewhere. Look, his name is in this piece right there because he helps the Beaver Builder crew with their stuff, and this is all about Beaver Builder. What's going on here, Paul?
Well, first of all, I'm just laughing at Matt Davies' comment. I feel really sorry for Paul's head needing glasses. Didn't realize you could have follicles that struggled with their own vision. And that is, for the people listening, that's because I had the glasses on my head like that. And
do you remember that character in the Muppets called Skeeter? I think he was called Skeeter. He had glasses which contained his eyes, and if he moved his glasses up, his eyes went with it, and he had eyebrows attached above his glasses. He looked a bit like Skeeter for a minute. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, well, thanks. That's a real compliment there. Thanks for that, Nathan. For anyone who wants to check what Skeeter looks like. Okay, so there's a new update for Beaver Builder. They've been working hard in the background on version 2.2, and there's a few things that cross over with some of the other tools that we cover on here as well. So the first thing that they're announcing in this post on the Beaver Builder, wpbeaverbuilder.com website, is the new thing they're calling the outline panel. And this is something that you'll see on some of the other tools. I'm pretty sure Elementor has this or something similar to it, and I'm pretty sure Oxygen has this. And Gutenberg has something similar to this too. It's definitely worth, if anyone is using Beaver Builder, going to this post and just checking like the 2-minute video on how this particular thing works, because I was using the alpha and the beta of this from the beginning, from when they started working on this, and it's seen so many improvements while it was in the alpha and the beta phase. Just the ability to drag things around. What you can't see in this screenshot, but you do see in the video, and obviously using it, is that you can collapse different things so that you can really make it so that you're just focusing on what you're looking at in that tree structure there. You can also just click on any of the elements there, and the page will scroll to where that element is in the page. So it's really good for finding some of those things if you're not sure which one that you're looking at. Another thing that you can do that's really cool is for any of the rows or the elements, you can give them your own labels. So for instance, if you want to, instead of it just at the top just saying row, you can call that your hero banner row or whatever you want to do in there, or your page title, all those different things, key image. And if you've got some hidden items as well, you can label them as hidden and that kind of thing. So you can really organize your page nicely in there and drag things around. So I think that's a really welcome addition for Beaver Builder users. The thing that I've been working on, which is mentioned next in the post, is a new set of templates in Beaver Builder. Now, Beaver Builder isn't a plugin that their team actually doesn't want to put hundreds of templates in the Beaver Builder plugin so that it doesn't end up being a big file and bloated with lots of stuff that you don't need. They have a different idea on how to deliver templates, which we'll come on to in a minute. So I did recently, one of the things I did with them was a bunch of templates. It was about 20 or so templates, and they chose 10 of those to put into the latest version under the Pro set. As I built these templates, I obviously know a little bit about them and built them to be very much pages that you would need in everyday situations. So the two landing pages that you've got there is a home and a landing page. Nathan, if you could just scroll down just slightly so I can remember what I actually did. And then other pages, for instance, like services, about page, contact page, FAQs, case study page, regular page, webinar, special offer, download. So you've got things like all the sort of templates that you typically use in a funnel, so that you would be able to just modify those and reuse them for whatever styles that you wanted. So there's a bunch of templates in there now. I don't think that there'll be, even though I'm working on templates with Beaver Builder, I'm working on those more for the assistant plugin that they're coming up with. Another nice little feature in there, if you remember recently in WordPress in the media library, there was a feature whereby you could press a button, it would copy the URL of the media item that you were looking at, which I found really, really useful actually. Beaver Builder have put something similar into this whereby I've skipped one here. I'll come back to that duplicate one actually.
Okay.
So they've put a feature in here so that if you're creating saved rows or saved modules and you're viewing that in the back end, you can just press a button that copies that shortcode, and so that you can use that shortcode in any of your content to insert that saved module, which is super useful actually for me anyway, because I'm always forgetting what the exact syntax is for the shortcodes and having to check the documentation. So now we don't need to. We can just copy and paste that. The thing that Nathan is looking at the moment is the new duplicate page or post functionality. I don't really understand the full need for this, but from what I believe, what I'm led to believe is that most of the duplicate post or page plugins often have problems with page builders.
Yeah, they do.
I'm not exactly sure what those problems are, but apparently they do. So Beaver Builder have created their own duplicate page or post functionality. Doesn't matter what taxonomy or custom post type you're in, and it will it will duplicate that post in a way that works perfectly with Beaver Builder. They've also done a kind of fallback here, so that if you are using another duplicate page or post plugin, the button that you press when a page is done in Beaver Builder will use their functionality rather than the other plugin that you've got installed. So if you're using a Gutenberg post, it will use the Yoast duplicate post plugin, for instance. Yep. But if that particular thing that you're duplicating is a Beaver Builder layout, it will override that and use its own functionality there.
Oh, that's cool. That's really nice. Yeah.
Also, they recently employed a content creator for their YouTube channel. The last couple of months, they've been pushing out a YouTube channel every week. The person that was hired was a YouTuber called Jennifer Franklin, who's a designer and a YouTuber. She's been pushing out tons of videos, which they're using primarily to begin with to put into all their documentation. Beaver Builder is quite well known for its good documentation. So in addition to the text-based documentation, Jennifer is doing these little videos that go with that, but obviously they're going out on the YouTube channel as well. And I think that once the documentation is kind of complete, then they'll start doing more how-to videos for everyday use and more workshops and that kind of stuff. Then finally, a couple of things. They've updated some modules. Some key ones of note is the menu module, which within Beaver Builder was probably not as good as it could have been. And it what we found is when I was doing these templates, some of the templates I've been doing for Assistant are full site templates. So they have headers and footers. And obviously those headers and footers include menus. And in using that, I found that without CSS, I couldn't achieve some of the simple things that everyday users would need to do. So myself and other people were able to feedback, and the menu module as a result has been vastly updated to have all the mobile control you need over things like subnav, whether using the menu in the footer or the header, having appropriate settings for those different places or sidebars, etc. So that's been vastly improved. And then finally, the other one that's worth mentioning is the pricing table module. And one of the nice things that's been added to that, it's been brought up to date with the styling options with the more modern modules. And secondly, a really useful feature that people ask for all the time in pricing tables is that kind of switcher. So you can say, hey, I want to show what the prices are in monthly and yearly, or whatever the two different options might be, daily or weekly or whatever. You've got a toggle where you can have different settings for different things. So that's the Beaver Builder update. Then the other big update that they're mentioning is Assistant Pro is launching very, very soon. It's probably not worth mentioning too much about it because when they launch, all the information they want to release will be with that. But they're just mentioning in this post that Assistant Pro is coming soon. They figured out the pricing that they want to do. They're happy with the stability of the Pro version of the plugin, and more on that later. And then, sorry, there is one more thing in this post. It was a really big post by Beaver Builder, actually. Just some stuff on the success that some of the people have been having with the performance tests on Beaver Builder. So Cloudways recently did a blog showing their platform with different page builders. Beaver Builder did quite well with that. And then they do credit our friend David Wormsley, who's been doing a series of YouTube videos about performance, specifically with Beaver Builder, showing how you can hit those top scores on mobile and on desktop on Google PageSpeed Insights without even using things like the caching plugins and all those kind of things. David's been kind of showing us how, to be honest, you could apply this to any page builder as well. How to get the good scores by doing good practice, no matter what tools you're using, but specifically with Beaver Builder. So I think that's it from the Beaver Builder update. So it's a big one. Sorry if you're not using Beaver Builder and you had to sit through that, but anyone who is, then it's the 2.5 is out, and it's definitely worth checking out the new stuff in there.
Yeah, there is a lot in there, isn't there? And also really nice that you've got the inside track on all of that. Nice looking templates, by the way. Somebody said
they've got some great stuff coming up. Honestly, I can't say much about it, but
that's okay. We understand.
Some cool stuff coming.
We'll try and trip you up and make you say things during the course of the podcast. But whoever that is, Facebook user, is saying awesome work. So great.
Thank you.
I am very excited about the whatever that thing is called. The outline panel. That seems to me like a really amazing addition.
The thing about that is that it would be really worth the Gutenberg team looking at this, looking at the Oxygen one, looking at the Elementor one that I believe exists, and seeing what's right about them, using them and seeing what feels good. Because, like I say, when I saw this in the alpha version, it wasn't that useful. It was more of just a visual guide to what your page looked like. And then by the end, there's collapsing, reordering, duplicating, right-click one of those elements and click on the settings, straight into the settings without having to find it on the page. All this super useful workflow stuff that the beta testing team, which isn't an official team, it's just volunteers who are interested, feedback and put those improvements in. So I don't know what the state of the one in Gutenberg is at the moment, but I'm sure there's some good stuff in here that they could look at to get some inspiration.
There's a few. It's been updated recently, hasn't it? And it does a lot more than it once did. I don't know if Rob is a user of Beaver Builder or if that was all just sort of, just going over your head, or do you dabble in Beaver Builder?
No, I dabble in it a bit, Nathan. It's not my page builder choice. I tend to lately either flocked to Elementor or Oxygen, but as we were talking in the pre-show, I'm actually all in with Gutenberg right now, so I'm kind of throwing all my time in that spot. So I'm not using it as much as I used to.
That's good. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of improvements going on in there, but I like it, and it's also so nice, Paul, to see you cropping up in the actual news that we're talking about. That's cool. That's really nice.
Yeah,
and
it's
David
great,
Walmsley
Paul.
as well. That's also really nice. Two people who
The WP build's massive.
Well, apart from the fact that I don't get mentioned anywhere and never will, in all likelihood.
They were going to mention you, but I told them to leave you alone.
Well, thank you. That was very good of you.
Said you didn't deserve it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's great. Loads of Beaver Builder news, big release, and rejoice if you are a Beaver Builder user. There's tons of you for you to go and check out. You were talking earlier about whether or not the Gutenberg team can make use of things like Beaver Builder, and we'll get to a piece in just a moment. Well, in fact, right now, which might kind of link into that, because this happened during the last week. The guys over at Automattic have acquired Frontity, which was a sort of React-based framework for building out. Well, it says here it's an open source framework for building WordPress themes with React. Now, what's curious about this is they've in the piece that I'm looking at here on WP Tavern, there's no mention of how much changed hands or anything like that. It's just that these guys have been bought and then instantly repurposed. So they haven't been bought to carry on working on Frontity. In fact, Frontity, as we know it, has sort of gone to be an open source community-driven project, no longer being driven by the two guys on the screen. I should mention their names. Their names are Pablo Postigo and Louis Herranz. And they've been taken on by the Automattic team and instantly deployed at the Gutenberg UI. And it kind of seems like, Paul, you and I have been banging on about Gutenberg and the UI and whether it's any good and da-da-da. It just, it's like a scratched record. And one of the things that we keep saying, privately more than publicly, is wouldn't it be good if they just hired some real experts and put them to got them to sit on the wheel and grind it out. And it appears that's what they're doing. So for my part, this is really good news. We've got a couple of guys who've now got the responsibility to go out and figure out what is next for Gutenberg. How should it all look? What should the UI be like? What should the UX be like? And it seems like they've got a real track record in making things like this work. So there you go. Fascinating news. I'll chuck it over to Paul first, Rob, if that's all right, because we've been going on about this for so long. I just wanted to get his thoughts.
Sure.
So what it is, Frontity is kind of above my pay scale. I have no idea what it does. I mean, I've read what it does, but I don't understand how I would use it or anything like that. So what I'd take from it is that these two chaps are very clever and very skilled and a fantastic addition to the team at Automattic to work on the Gutenberg project. And like you said, Nathan, I just get the impression that they are going to fill some skill gaps in terms of they are using React to create real world websites at a high level. I think Frontity powers TikTok or something crazy like that.
Yeah, it's some kind of TikTok community channel somewhere, isn't it? Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, so I think a lot of the comments that I've seen online are tending to sort of say this is more of a person acquisition rather than a piece of software acquisition, because Automattic have said that they're going to turn Frontity into a community project, which I think means probably more or less the end of Frontity as it was, because you're just taking the two kind of geniuses behind it. But again, there's a certain element of my own ignorance into understanding who has worked on Frontity and what happens if you take those two people out. Now, what's interesting though is I've seen zero pushback on what my initial reaction to something like that was going to be, which would be, my initial reaction was, oh my gosh, they're shelving Frontity and taking the people. There's going to be a lot of people upset about this. And all I've seen is positiveness about the two chaps who've moved to Automattic and basically, achieved their goals and become hugely successful as a result of this, and it will now get to be lead players on a really big project. So I think it's super good news for the Gutenberg team. As for what they're going to be working on, I wouldn't be surprised if they're working on things like WooCommerce. I know that it says that they're working on the Gutenberg project, but I feel like they seem like people who would be wasted to not be working on things like WooCommerce blocks, or things like when Automattic acquires things like what's that blog thing that they acquired? I forget what it's called now.
Tumblr?
Tumblr. Yeah, Tumblr. So kind of you can imagine kind of app type front end themes that are not for brochure websites. They're kind of like functional web apps using the Gutenberg editor. I could see that kind of thing that they're working on, stuff that we don't really know about yet. But like I say, the nice thing about it was that there was no pushback. It was all good wishes, even on Twitter, where you would expect to see some cynicism, but there was none. So good acquisition of skills by Automattic there, I think.
Rob, it's now very important that you are very cynical about this, because just to give it some balance. No, you must be delighted if you're going all in on Gutenberg.
I am delighted, because this is definitely a people acquisition for knowledge more than anything else. So I agree with Paul that they acquired Frontity for the people involved. And in the tech space, we acquire people for two reasons: for people or technology. I think this is a people buy. Changing the UI for me is a big deal in Gutenberg. So I personally think WordPress and Automattic's headed in the right space with this. Now, a lot of people are going to be cynical and say, here we go again. Automattic and Matt are acquiring more things to take more control. But I think what we're seeing is a maturity in the space with all these acquisitions going on. So I think this is a really big deal and a good deal for Automattic because of that.
Yeah, I'm just going to quote from the piece itself. I might as well put it on the screen while I do that. It says, so this is coming from the guys from Frontity. After a series of conversations, Automattic offered to sponsor our team to work directly on the WordPress open source project, in particular to contribute our expertise in developer experience, front-end tooling, performance, and UX to the WordPress core itself, instead of only doing it for an external tool. So yeah, I think we're fairly confident that that is what's going to happen. And then further down in the article, this is also worth mentioning, of some more. So this isn't people being sort of acquired as such. This is people who have been given work in and around the Gutenberg projects, because we now have a new head of developer relations. Hopefully I'll have her on the podcast at some point very soon. But also, friend of the podcast, she's been on the show a number of times, Birgit Pauly Hack, has been taken on she's now become a part of the Automattic team, and it says here Automattic is also sponsoring her curation of the Gutenberg Times publication and the Changelog podcast, which is just great. So that publication can keep going, and she's been taken on as well. So bravo, congratulations, Birgit, well done. That's great. So all in all, it looks like the thing that we were saying we wish would happen, Paul, investment in the Gutenberg project, UX, seems to be going on. Yeah,
they need the project needs an injection of UX knowledge and skills, and the fact that those guys have that, plus they are also expert developers in React, can only be a good thing for WordPress, as far as I can tell.
This is curious as well. I mean, the Frontity hasn't been around all that long, but already they had received €1 million in funding, which is
20% of that was from Automattic as well.
Yeah, I think it was 20 something. Yeah, you're right. So anyway, there we go. Nice bit of news. Let's crack on.
Just one thing before we move on. There seems to be like a pattern of Automattic kind of almost donating money to tech and then later on acquiring them. I think the same happened with Castos. Yeah, I don't know. Did they acquire Castos, or they've just
they invested in Castos?
Right. Actually, so that's not a trend. Actually, they forget all that.
They invested in Paul. They invested in Castos in the podcast entity they acquired was Pocket, right?
Yes.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
Which is my tool of choice for listening to
too.
podcasts. I actually subscribed for the first time. I've been using rival services.
Mine too.
Subscribed to Spotify and started using that as a podcast interface, and then quickly realized actually I prefer Pocket Cast. So I was right back to Pocket Cast within just a matter of weeks, and it's just great.
Yep.
It's just really, really great. If you've not used it, Pocket Cast for the win. I think they've got a premium version, but I think you can download a free version. It's well worth checking out. Okay, next piece then is where have we all gone? There we are, back on the screen. This is just a piece I just thought was really interesting. More WP Tavern stuff. This is Justin Tadlock. Just found this fascinating. Sabrina and I got sort of most of the way through a series of podcasts. Sabrina Zidane and I got through a series of podcasts last year where we were trying to talk about how it might be that you would promote your plugin, and I just thought this was a really interesting piece. Justin writing this week finally finishing a piece that he's had in the draft folder of WordPress Tavern for many, many months. And he's finally committed to publishing it because of some things that happened and commentary that came in. But just, I see this quite a bit, plugins languishing in the WordPress repo that do a stellar job of whatever it is that they're designed to do. But also kind of, when I say languishing, they're there, they're doing what they're supposed to do, but nobody really knows about them. And I feel a little bit sad in some respects that there are so many plugins, because it does mean that if you put something out there and haven't got the capacity, the time, the interest to promote it, it is quite likely that it won't be discoverable. So that's what this piece was all about. He linked up with Bridget Willard to sort of talk about how you might publish your product, your plugin. I don't really know if anybody's got anything to say about this. Probably not, because I don't know if Rob's got a plugin, but I just thought it was a nice little piece worth mentioning. If you are producing plugins, it's saying don't just put it in the repo and say, enough, I'm done. If you want it to be successful, you've got to get out there and market it. Paul, Rob, I don't know if you've got anything on that.
I would say, Nathan, sorry, Paul. I would say if you're going to market anything, not just a plugin, you should jump out and market it properly and not just throw it out there. That's really my take on it.
Yeah.
Yep. I agree, actually. I think the biggest takeaway from this post is Bridget Willard's book, which I've not read. I've not got any plans to create a plugin. But the fact that there is a guide rather than nothing out there, that if you launch a plugin that you can follow, because there's all sorts of guides out there for how to launch a course or how to launch a digital product like a book or a digital book or something like that. There's plenty of guides to that. And if you've ever seen them, then you know that they're quite structured. For instance, our friend Dave Foy, he is a very successful course creator these days, and I was there at the beginning with him when he was creating his first course. And Nathan, you were there as well when he was showing us the process he was going through. And I think I've said it before that I think a lot of us in this little mastermind where we all used to be together with myself and Nathan and Dave Foy and a few other people, all had this idea, I'm going to make a course. I'm going to make a course too. We're all going to make a course. And then we saw what Dave Foy actually did.
I'm not going to make successful,
and none of us wanted to make a course anymore. And I think that it just shows that there's a lot of hard work to going into marketing these things. I know, Rob, you're well into the whole personal brand thing because you've got a very good personal brand. So I assume you're into the whole personal brand thing. And it goes back as well to the previous item where Birgit, not Bridget, but Birgit has landed a position at Automattic after being a very kind of popular podcaster within the whole Gutenberg and blog project space. And I think it was Matt Mullenweg a while ago. He got kind of criticized for it, but it was taken a little bit out of context in some ways, was saying, if you want to get into a particular area, then contributing to the open source side of that is a good idea. And I think Birgit is an example of that, because she's landed a great job that I assume she's very happy about. And she wouldn't have been in the situation to get that job if she hadn't done the contributing and building up her personal brand in the meantime. So I'm not sure what Bridget's book talks about, if it talks about personal branding and stuff like that, but I bet it does. And I think if anyone is launching a plugin, and I know that some of the listeners and viewers do have plugins, it's probably worth the $10 for the digital version of that book, or the $20 for the printed version of that book, just to see if there's a kind of a route that you can take to try and launch something and maybe one day get acquired and cash out.
And it was Sabrina who is in the comments now. That's nice to see you, Sabrina. She mentioned that there's the link. You have to just take that off the screen, I'm afraid. You can't link to it, or if you're in the Facebook group, bridgetwillard.com/how to market your plugin, all hyphenated. So there you go. Yeah, nice piece. All right, shall we move on?
Mm-hmm.
Okie doke. Let's go to this one. Now then, I think this is quite an interesting piece. So again, harking
I'm already
back to
triggered.
No, because I'm going to show you the spreadsheet.
Okay.
We've been going backwards and forwards, Paul and I, about the WordPress community, and how last week we talked. There was a piece where it's difficult for people to contribute, and people in the piece that we mentioned last week were kind of saying that only those people who've got the time and the energy can push the project forward and so on. And I just found this piece really interesting. So Sarah Gooding, it's called Gutenberg Contributors Get Organized to Move Block-Based Navigation Forward. And honestly, the block-based navigation bit isn't the reason I picked this, although it's an interesting subject and you can figure out what's going on with the block-based navigation. It just sort of occurred to me how much stuff goes on in the project that you never ever see unless you're part of it. So just a little bit of the way down, after Sarah mentions the fact that there was a hallway hangout meeting where people tried to reinvigorate what was basic dead project. This block-based navigation had totally fallen out of favor and people weren't doing anything about it. They decided that they needed to resurrect it, and so they put this meeting together. And then they threw together a public Google Doc, which I'm now showing on the screen. And this, to me, is a perfect illustration of the level of detail that is going on in the background in these little Slack channels, in these little community gatherings, this hangout that people did. And this is people addressing what needs to happen to get the block-based navigation working. This isn't what we're going to do. This is more, right, here's where we're at. This is us prioritizing in the future what we're going to do. And it's all of these little things that I don't often see because I don't contribute to core and what have you. But there's all this kind of, well, Gutenberg's not doing what I want it to do. Nobody's listening to us and so on. And this just for me exemplifies people are listening if you've got the capacity to join in. And when these meetings are happening, and you can cope with the channels that they put these meetings out in. So, Paul, did I trigger you? Sorry.
Gutenberg triggers me generally. So. I'm proud of La Resistance.
Do you want it? Do you
David
think,
Walmsley.
Do you see this as, like, to me, it's really demonstrative that people are trying ever so hard to make it all work. It just doesn't seem to fall out the way that our page builders have managed to do it with such aplomb over the last few years.
I think it's great that the effort is going into communicating with the Google Doc and all that sort of stuff. I did put a comment on that post, and Justin Tadlock did agree with me in his response. And all I said was that it would be great if the approach to navigation was not beginning with how do we do this in blocks. So it doesn't necessarily have to be in blocks. Sometimes some elements on a website are better if they're pre-produced in an appropriate user interface. So, for instance, you wouldn't try to make a YouTube video out of blocks. You would clearly make the YouTube video using video editing tools. I know this is an extreme example, and then you would put the the finished video inside the block. So my comment on the post was that I don't know if they're struggling through trying to put a square peg in a round hole for the navigation. That said, if they do manage to pull it off, there's some really good reasons that would benefit having navigation as blocks, and those are things, for example, which we'll come to in the Elementor post in a minute. Let's say you've got a navigation and then you want something like a mini cart at the end, but that's got some good functionality in it. Then if the whole navigation set is built out of blocks, then if the block exists that is a mini cart that can go in any navigation, then it can go in that navigation, that block-based navigation. So they seem to be going towards the idea that you could do almost anything with navigation, which is a good thing to aim for. But I think they're really fighting a difficult battle trying to get block-based navigation working properly. And good luck to them. I hope they pull it off. But my comment was just, it would be cool if you kind of had the conversation first, whether is this the right thing to even do, and to give them due credit, whoever they are. Maybe they did have that idea, but I do tend to see with the Gutenberg project that it's kind of like, right, how do we do this with blocks? And I feel like if you went to, I know it's a distributed company, but if you went to like Automatic's headquarters, if they did have one and there was a machine where you could buy chocolate and crisps and chips and stuff like that, the interface, they'd be trying to make that interface out of blocks as well. So I just, as a little bit of, I see why they're doing it, but it's just because from what I've seen of the block-based navigation so far, it's kind of backwards.
Yeah. The controversial, there's a block for that mentality, which is going to sort of pervade in the future. Yeah, maybe some things are best left not as blocks. Any thoughts on this one, Rob?
I tend to agree with you, Nathan. Even though I'm all in with Gutenberg, I think there's some things that are better with blocks and some things that are not as good with blocks. And I think navigation really at this point in time doesn't fit well into the block model. So I'm kind of in a wait and see mode with this one personally. So that's where I stand.
Yeah. Okay. All righty. We got another one for you. We're going to go and do a little roundup of some plugins, some of them brand new. We don't usually do it this way. We don't normally feature plugins, but there were like quite a few bits this week. There were 5 or 6 that I thought, this is interesting. There's quite a lot of updating going on, so I thought I'd just mention in a plugin section. At this point, we should have some sort of jingle which says plugin section or something really terrible like that. I challenge anybody to come up with a plugin section jingle. Yeah. That was about as badly done as it could be. Never mind. Let's press on. So first one is this is a new one. It's by the guys who do Fluent Forms and what's the other thing? Fluent guys.
CRM.
Fluent CRM, and they've also got a Fluent SMTP
CRM
plugin as well. Yes, this one's called WP Social Ninja. So they're dropping the Fluent bit, and it's not out yet. And it's exactly what you'd expect. It's a social media posting thing. You can show your social feeds. You can embed a social chat widget, which something like Facebook Messenger, I guess, and all that kind of stuff. And it appears that they're looking for people to subscribe to what will then become an email list offering you a lifetime deal. I don't really have one plugin that does all of this kind of stuff. If I do social posting, it tends to go out to SaaS apps that do all of this. But anyway, I like those guys. I really like the stuff that they've produced in the past. So when this came into my inbox, I thought I'd add it. It's wpsocialninja.com, and there's nothing there yet. But they're doing a pre-sale to get you into a lifetime deal. So that's the first one. I don't think anybody's going to talk about that, are they, except me? So I might as well just push on to the next one.
I quite like this one, actually.
Okay, please.
Yeah, I mean, I've looked through the website and I'm always interested with what that particular company are pushing out, because they always seem to do a really good job of looking at stuff that's out there but could be improved upon. And then they genuinely improve upon it, and they seem like they have a really stable setup for managing bugs and support and all that kind of stuff. But I think when I saw this announced, I was just like, is this just another social sharing plugin? Is it another one? And it's actually not. It's probably got social sharing in it. I couldn't actually see anything about social sharing. But social sharing is where you kind of got your website content and you're pushing it out to social media. But almost everything on this is about pulling social in. So, for instance, you've got reviews from all sorts of different places. Google reviews. I think I forget what's the one where you hire houses. What's that called?
Oh, Airbnb, that one.
Airbnb, yeah. I
Yeah.
think Airbnb might be in there, and
Oh, it is.
TripAdvisor
Yeah,
and those
yeah, it
sort of
is.
things.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, pulling in different feeds from YouTube and eventually Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Chat from different so Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, and Telegram. So there's some seriously powerful engagement tools there that we
Yeah.
often see as SaaS apps, but within WordPress, and we don't know how much it's going to cost. I'm not in any of those Facebook groups anymore where everyone's kind of got an inside track on that. I don't know how much it's going to cost, but it looks pretty powerful, and I'm interested in. I've put my email address in there. I think that
Yeah.
this sort of thing probably does exist, but probably in places like the Envato networks. So, which I tend not to buy plugins from those sort of places. So if I was going to get something like this, these guys would be who I'd be happy to buy it from. I'm
Yeah,
interested
there's
to
a
see
lot of
what the
good
cost
stuff.
is.
Yeah, yeah. Well, anyway, you'll find out in your email. Do you ever use anything like this, Rob? Is up your street kind of thing you'd submit your email for?
Yeah, I do sometimes, Nathan. I tend to go to more SaaS apps when I'm doing multiple posts. So that's kind of been my take. But I really like the guys, this group the Ninja guys, and I really like the type of stuff they do. So I would probably check this out. It all depends on what the pricing is going to be.
Yeah.
The other thing we got to be really careful of is the whole LTD model. I hate to go here, but I'm going to. I want this plugin to be sustainable. And if we offer too many lifetime deals in the long run, will it be sustainable, and will they run out of money to develop it? So we gotta find a balance here too. So and
Yeah.
that's a concern of mine all the time.
I'm curious as to how much of this product exists, if you know what I mean, or as opposed to how much of it
Yeah.
is this is what we're going to build based upon the amount of lifetime deal subscribers that come along. Whether the lifetime deal people are in effect paying for the first round of development to get it done. Shahaj and Jewel will probably be able to tell us. I don't think he's in the show at the minute, but you never know. He might somehow be able to reach out to us and let us know. But yeah, really very confident in their ability to pull this kind of thing off. They do have a history of doing a limited time lifetime deal. So with the Fluent Forms, I can't remember how long it went on for, but the pricing was pretty good for several months, and then they put it to subscription, and I think it continues to work very well as a subscription model. So maybe it's just a mechanism for getting some cash. But it is interesting. I never make use of any of these things, Paul, that you were mentioning, like the Airbnb and the TripAdvisor. But, if you're in that niche, if you're, I don't know, you want to rent your house out for the summer holidays, and Airbnb is the way that you've decided to do it, and you've got genuine reviews on there which can help you out and sell it for that period of time. This sort of stuff's great.
I think any business that any agency, for instance, or freelancer that's working regularly with companies that are kind of small B2C type companies, cafes, restaurants, service industry, that kind of stuff. This feels like a really good set of tools for people. But I totally agree with Rob as well about the lifetime deal model, and I'd probably even build on what Rob said. Just that it being sort of seeing what's going on in the industry a lot from studying the news and everything, and the acquisitions and everything. It feels like there's never a time than now that it's been more important to be mindful of the things that you're buying and the plans that you've got to do with those tools. That the industry is a little bit volatile, and that there is the problem with the not pricing these products high enough starts all the way back at the the repo where you have these, developers creating plugins for free and not really knowing how to market them. And it takes a different type of mind than the kind of minds that come up with these kind of products sometimes to market these products really, really well. I mean, you look at a success story would be someone like Vito Peleg, who had, he's got his product Atarim, and he got into web development, but prior to that he was a rock star and he was marketing his own rock band, and so he kind of got some skills before that, and he knew how to get street teams going and marketing his product for him. Not everybody knows how to do that. So when you see these products coming out that sometimes, not saying this one, but you do see a lot of copycat products recently, and this is a pretty unique product, but you see a lot of copycat products released and you think, oh, that's a great deal, that's cheaper than Gravity Forms or whatever it might be, but that product just simply might not exist for a while. And then Brian Gardner, who we've had on this plugin, this show a few times, I listened to a podcast with him recently saying that it genuinely is a thing in the industry now that if you're building a plugin or a product within the WordPress space, the majority of people that are doing it with new products and launching it to the pro market are doing it to try and get acquired. So a lot of the time they don't even have a long-term plan for sustainability, like Rob was talking about. They're hoping that somebody just buys them out. And if that doesn't work out for them, then they probably move to another product. And again, not saying that WP Managed Ninja do that. I don't think they do. I think they're an exception. I think they have got a good business plan from what I can tell. But it's just kind of like buyer beware time at the moment, I would say.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a scary time, Paul. I think we're at a point right now where we're watching the big plugin shops, and I think of guys like Liquid Web, and look what they're doing right now. They're running around buying up people, and we got to start being really mindful of that, because I think we're going to end up with 5 or 6 big plugin super shops. The thing I'd like to add is you were talking about people building stuff in the repo for free. I think we got to get off this mode that everything in the WordPress community is for free, and we got to start charging what we're worth. And I mean that from developers, designers, and plugin developers. We're all undervaluing our services, and it's not doing our industry any good as a whole, to be honest. It's actually hurting us in a big way. So that's my 2 cents to add to that as well.
Thank you. A couple of comments come in. Firstly, Todd says he'd like a jingle. Well, I wouldn't hold your breath, Todd. It would be mediocre in the extreme if I was to do that, and it in fact might hurt your ears. So let's pretend that never happened and move on. The next one is, I think this is Devinder actually. If it looks like this is Devinder, forgive me, Devinder, if it's not you. He says that it matches their Ninja Tables plugin. Do you mean to say that it matches, like it's got the same sort of UI, UX, or matches as in you feel that the way that they're launching it is in the same way? Did they do a lifetime deal? Maybe that's more what you meant. And here we go, Todd again saying that he thinks that WP Managed Ninja is in it for the long term. Yeah, when I bought their Fluent Form plugins, I didn't know much about them, so it was a bit of a punt actually. And now that they've been around for, let's say, several years, I'm more and more and more confident in their team's abilities, and I think they're going to be around for a long time as well. Now you're talking. Get Vito Peleg to do the jingle. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, I can feel a.
If you watch some of Vito's, if you've got to, I recommend see if you can find some of Vito's old band official videos on YouTube. They're brilliant. I mean, X-rated, but
I've seen. I mean, it was like full on metal, wasn't it? It was the real deal. Okay, we'd have to go for some sort of heavy metal plug-in jingle. Mm-hmm. Oh, the mediocrity is
it suits us so well.
The mere thought. Rob's just disappeared at the thought of that. His screen has gone black. Hopefully he'll come back in a minute. His connection is a bit spotty. On the inside of the platform, I can see, I don't know if you can, Paul, I can see like a green bar status of how good the signal is, and yours is 5 out of 5, mine's 5 out of 5, Rob's is sort of bouncing up and down. So, Rob, if the quickest way might be just to click refresh, if you can still hear us, try that. That might work.
Todd E. Jones has just made a comment, and he probably made it almost as a joke because he does have a product which is about how to make a good about page. But it's also not a joke as well, because I totally agree. He says, I will say these plugin makers need an about page. And I think that's absolutely true, because it is the case that people look, the savvy shoppers now do look on the about page and try and figure out, okay, what's the history of this company? Who are they? What's their credentials and that kind of thing? And a lot of the time they don't have them. I know our friend David Wormsley, he won't buy anything. He won't, David is a real savvy shopper, and he won't buy anything unless he can figure out if these people have been around for a while, if they've got some track history and stuff like that. And if you don't have an about page, you don't have terms, conditions, you don't have privacy policy, it gives off the wrong signals. So I think plugin creators out there should just make sure they're taking care of those little details as well on their websites.
You know what? That's a really interesting point, because I know that of David as well. In fact, he was the person that put me onto that whole mode of shopping. In other words, if you, let's say you click on a random link, or somebody drops a link in a Facebook group or something, and you click over there, and your initial impression is, actually, this seems okay. I'll spend a few more minutes on this website and poke around. His first port of call is the About Us page, and he wants to see what your credentials are and whether you're in it for the long haul and what you've done in the past. And you are, in effect, I guess, to use a phrase which is commonly brought out, you're sort of leaving money on the table if you don't do those things, because a certain proportion of people are only going to be buying your stuff if they believe that they can trust you. It's not about showing off how great your product is. It's more about showing off how trustworthy you are.
Things like checking the terms and conditions. Go ahead, Rob.
Remember, Nathan, people buy, and I'm sorry, Paul, didn't mean to cut you off. People buy who they want to work with and not the product. There's 5 different products out there that do everything. You choose the product based on the team you want to work with today. And I always say that when you're marketing, and there's the guys that put Fluent Forms, Ninja, and with plugin, they do a really good job at marketing. To be fair to them, a lot of plugin developers don't market really well, and this is where they get into problems. And the about pages Todd talks about quite a bit is part of their marketing, and they don't see it that way. So they need to start to say, okay, this is why you need to buy me. This is what differentiates me from all those other guys. And that's, if you come across and say, oh, another social plugin, people just gloss over it and say, here we go, we don't want to be in that space. And to be honest with you, you got to stand out, and the about page is one way to do that. So
nice. I don't actually know. Having said all that, I don't know if this page has got a.
That's what I'm checking as well.
Yeah,
they do. They do have an About Us page, and it goes over to their social. Yeah, so it pops out. You can see the team there. You can. There's not much. They've not pushed too much about themselves on there, but so I'm sure Todd thinks that they could definitely improve that quite a lot. And I agree as well, because Jewel, who's the founder of, is really out there, and he's been on this show twice at least, and they could be showing how active they are in the community on there, and just giving people even more reason to think, I not only think this is a great product, but I feel like I know the people who are doing it. And there's
I was using their SMTP plugin actually this morning, and I was configuring it to work with Google Workspace, and you've got to go through their cloud. You have to do the OAuth stuff and all that. And I was watching the video because it was easier for me than following the documentation. I much prefer a walkthrough video than following documentation for something which can be done in 5 minutes. And I think it was Joel actually doing the video. I'm pretty convinced it was him. And I just thought, wow, that's cool. There's the CEO of the company making the little how-to videos about the product when they release a new feature. So, yeah. Totally committed, and they go on holiday with the team.
Yeah,
I don't know if you've seen in their Facebook posts recently, they're all on holiday somewhere, just taking in the views. It's really nice,
especially if you've got a really good personality like Jewel does. I'm not saying that they don't, but just in any scenario, any company, if you've got someone in your company who's one of the leaders who happens to be a really likable personality, just make use of that. Make use of that asset, because it is a differentiator for you and 99% of the other products that you're
In your
probably
team.
competing with. Yeah.
Here we go. Yeah, as if to corroborate everything that we've just been saying. Peter, hello. Nice to have you back, Peter. Very true. I pay much more attention to developers I like and have invested in and have proven their ability to deliver. Yeah, the difficulty there is, of course, is just making that first bridgehead, isn't it? I guess if you're just starting out, you've really got to go the extra mile and do the about us page and all that kind of stuff. And then over time, as Peter says, the trust builds, and your client base is probably made up of largely the same people when you release a new product. Maya says about page is the second most important page on the website. Yeah, nice. You would definitely have a friend in David Wormsley. He would heartily agree with you. Wow, that conversation about that plugin went off in a really interesting direction, didn't it? That was cool. Let's go to Cadence next. Let's just do this quickly. This is Cadence Blocks, who have introduced a conditional header. So you can now essentially put with this thing here, the conditional headers. What do they call these? Are these like little add-ons? I think they're called Pro add-ons. Oh yeah, it says here Pro add-ons. There's a new conditional header toggle, and it enables you to, say things like, if the page is this header. It's the sort of thing that you've been able to do with a page builder for a little while, but you can now do this inside of Cadence Blocks. That was really all I wanted to say about that. It's a nice little update. Paul, interrupt me if you wanted to mention that.
They've just made it very, very easy to do, which is good. Cadence is a theme that really embraced the customizer, and I love the customizer. I know that often it's talked about this thing that's going to get phased out, but I personally love the fact websites that web themes, WordPress themes that do this, because you can see, if you're looking at this, you can see one of the screens within Cadence where you can turn on the different modules that you want. And then when you've done that, you head into the customizer, and you can literally start at the top and work your way through the customizer to set up your whole site as you want it, get an understanding of what options you've got and what options you don't have, and then figure out what you need to patch with other plugins and stuff like that. And I think that's a really nice, the customizer to me, when it's done well, is almost like a wizard. And I think for anyone who's using, a theme like Cadence to run things like multiple domains pointing to one site for different landing pages, this is going to be a really welcome addition to this particular theme. And like we say, we've been able to do this with other tools like Elementor and Beaver Builder for a while. Well, Beaver Themer, necessarily, I would say. But not everyone knows about those sort of things to that level. And this is putting this functionality right there in the customizer. So well done to Cadence team. They are in touch with their audience and doing good things.
Nice. Rob?
They're part of my Gutenberg stack. So as somebody who uses Cadence Blocks, I'm really happy to see this change come about. So it's a step in the right direction. The more we start adding features like this, the more people will be less resistant to moving to Gutenberg. So well done, guys at Cadence. Good job.
Yeah, it is really easy now that you mention it. I've not actually tried it, but the way you just described it, Paul, I was really able to just follow along what the process would be. And I think the process in Beaver Builder for me is almost second nature now, but that took a little while to embed itself. This seems like it would be much more straightforward for somebody who's just familiar with, the
it's
customizer.
more straightforward. I think it's not quite as powerful as what Beaver Themer has in terms of the conditions. However, the majority of people that need that extra functionality would be the kind of people that would know how to do it a different way anyway. Yeah. So this is putting this kind of tool in everyone's hands. So let's say, for instance, here's a really nice use case for this. So you've got a website with a digital product. You send them to the digital product landing page, and what are you going to do? Are you going to hide the nav because you don't want them to click on the different links? You could do that, and maybe that's what you're going to do, and then create one landing page that has everything on there. Or you could put a conditional header in there using the Cadence's very powerful header builder, right? And have anchor links down your landing page, or break up your whole sales section for your digital product into a microsite within your own site, keeping that user within those bunch of pages. So it's a really powerful feature for anyone creating websites in a smart way. And this is why I struggle with things like the block-based navigation. I think I'm being short-sighted for sure about this kind of blocks and navigation like that. But I just like the way that you do this in a customizer, and you do it almost like a wizard, and it's almost asking you questions like, do you want to have conditional headers? Well, I don't yet, but next week I do. So I'm really glad I found out about that. So again, just think it's a good update for the Cadence users.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, last little bit on the plugin section. Right. Just make a note of that. That was 1 hour and 5 minutes. We'll have to edit that out. The next. Oh, look, Rob's gone again. Just as soon as I sing, I can barely describe it as singing. As soon as I do that thing that I just did, Rob disappears. Come back to us, Rob. Last one on the plugin section. Elementor. It seems like we had a period a year or so ago. Do you remember, Paul, where every week there was something new coming out of Elementor? That seems to have slowed down a bit. They seem to be concentrating on stability and refining the code that's output and all of that kind of stuff. But we've got something new for you. They're introducing extended e-commerce capabilities. They always do a great video over at Elementor, and they've got a nice here. I can't remember how long, but you can watch it in just a few short minutes, and it shows you all of the nice new features they've got. The main event really is this kind of hovering, floating mini cart. I think they called it a mini cart, which you've seen all over the place, and that was the main thing over there. There was various other bits and pieces, but you can also customize it inside of Elementor to make it look exactly how you like it. And they've also, that was it. I think there was a few other things in terms of you can place. This here was the bit that I thought was most interesting. You've got dynamic elements that you can put anywhere on your website. So if you've got, I don't know, if you've got a product which has got elements to it, think of a custom field and there's bits of that you want to put on the website, you can now do that dynamically and insert, if you like, short codes, and whatever the product is that is being shown, you'll be able to show those little things. So it won't just be the product title, it'll be any aspect of that configurable product. Rob, I think, has done a runner. So it's me and you, Paul. What do you think?
It's a really good update, actually, by Elementor. And do you know the thing I enjoy about this the most? The more I see Ben Pines in these videos, the more I realize I'm starting to understand his sense of humor. And he's a funny guy. He's he's in this video, and he makes these little jokes that are almost purposely bad, but they're funny when when they start adding up, that you've seen 3 or 4 of them on different videos. And he's clearly aware of it because he's smirking to himself every time that he makes one of these jokes about these products. And I think the videos are worth it. That if you know that Ben Pines is introducing one of the videos, then I think it's worth watching. I know with Divi, I forget the name of the guy who is kind of the CEO of Divi, but he's always doing the update videos, and they're very serious and stuff like that, and very professional. But yeah, Ben's videos are great. Really enjoy those. And I think what we've seen here with the Elementor is they have this theme called the Hello theme, which basically does nothing. It's kind of like a page builder theme, whereby it's great if you're using Elementor for building full sites, including headers and footers. But they're reducing the need for they're reducing the friction to someone jumping into that kind of theme. So, for example, one of the updates they've put out here is this mini cart that goes in your site navigation.
It's really nice.
It's lovely, and it's pretty powerful as well, and it's got a bunch of options. And you will find that kind of functionality in themes like Cadence and GeneratePress and Blocksy and Astra and those sort of themes. So a lot of people won't jump into using the Hello theme, and they won't use the headers from Elementor because they're lacking some functionality there. So this is clearly a couple of updates they're doing here to help remove that friction to even need to rely on a theme that has other functionality that they're slowly building into the page builder and making it a full site builder, much like
Yeah.
what Oxygen is. And
Yeah.
we all suspect
Yeah.
that Elementor is going for a cloud version, so it all kind of it's still making sense going along. Those predictions still seem to make sense.
Rob, I promise not to sing again, because every time I sing, you just sort of drop off the call.
Oh, my
So,
internet's being stupid. Life in the cloud today. What can I say?
it's no problem. We were just talking about the mini cart and the
Yeah.
customization options coming out in the new version of Elementor. I forgot to say, I think it's 3.4, I think is the point number. And we also touched upon the fact that you've got this mini cart which you can customize, but also the fact that there's dynamic product elements which you can drop anywhere in your Elementor website. And if you modify them in the product itself, then obviously they'll then get dynamically changed throughout your website. You did mention that you used Elementor, so
I
this
do. I
must
use
have.
it a little bit. I think the mini cart's a step in the right direction. I mean, the biggest problem we have with doing Woo sites is the cart and the checkout process. So anything that streamlines the cart, I'm good for, because I think it just streamlines the design and development process. So I think it's a step in the right direction. I think the guys up at Elementor are doing a lot of good stuff to keep themselves competitive to like Beaver Builder and Oxygen. So I think it's a good move in the long run for that reason.
Yeah, there's a couple of extra things which they mentioned, which I confess I didn't read because to me it was all about the WooCommerce stuff. But infinite
Yep.
scrolling was mentioned as well. But I presume that that's something that you've seen elsewhere before. Is that with a load more button?
Yeah.
It does mention that there's a load more button. Is it me, or did the media library in WordPress just get the load more button?
It did.
It
Was
did.
that? Yeah, because I can't even remember reading about that. And then I was looking. I was in a couple of websites. I was like, yeah, there's a button there now. It's definitely not just me. Okay. I'm not going mad. That's good. Right. Okay. We've got this one's for Rob. Rob enjoys IT sec, and we
Yeah.
just touch on it lightly. Usually, I don't know if Rob wants to mention this one in more detail. We've actually had Dovey, who was the founder of Redux, which is used in so many different places. But WordFence this week releasing a piece about the fact that 1 million sites have been affected by Gutenberg template library and Redux framework vulnerabilities. Rob, if you want to talk about this, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I'll talk about it really quickly. So a million sites is kind of big reaching, right? So to give the folks credit at Redux, they patched this right away and they got it done right away. So if you know anything about the way WordFence publishes vulnerabilities, they give the plugin manufacturers and the theme manufacturers time to get their stuff patched before they release it. So they dealt with this really quickly, which is good news for the community. It's been a bit of a tough security week. Before you came on, Paul, Nathan and I were talking a little bit about this. We were talking about a little bit about iThemes also released 67 vulnerabilities last week. And then we were talking about the WHC host in Montreal that was hacked and their backup server was taken out. And they've admitted they were hacked. So it's been a hard week. And all I can say to people is, update your sites regularly. Don't hold back. There's no reason. And make sure you have good backups. And those aren't backups that your host takes. Those are backups that you take, because if you take those backups and the backup server gets hacked, you can pick up and go somewhere else. So that's the two key things there. And I think they did a really good job on this one. So
yeah, I think WordFence were trying to, in the language that they're allowed to use, which is, this is a fairly serious bit of stuff that's happening. But this little thing here, you don't usually see this in their posts. They said the plugins publisher Redux.io replied almost immediately. I don't know what that means, but I'm guessing within a matter of hours to our initial contacts, and we provided full disclosure. A patch version was released on August the 11th. So basically, this little paragraph here feels like a bit of a pat on the back. There's a vulnerability that's always going to be a possibility, but well done for Paul, did we last week talk about the web hosting Canada thing, the
No.
WHC thing? Did you hear this story?
No, I didn't.
So there's a web host in Canada called WHC, and I don't quite know how it didn't make it into the rundown, but it didn't. They during the course of this week they were hacked, and it very quickly became obvious. Not only were their websites, a significant amount of their websites were taken down, but also pretty much the backups were gone as well. And so any of their customers who were relying on them to supply a backup were toast, complete toast. And I just found it almost breathtaking, the speed at which it happened. So you could see on Twitter or whatever it was, that whatever platform they were using to, I should probably take this off the screen, whatever platform they were using to show what was going on in real time. So, websites are down, we're investigating it. And then a few hours later, we've been breached. Then a few hours later, we've been breached, and it appears our backup servers have been taken down as well and erased. And then like, what they then offered people whose websites had been taken down and there was no way of bringing them back to life, they offered them a service where they could start again.
And then to add to it more, they're not taking phone calls. They're saying, jump on our live chat or tweet at us. We're not taking any phone calls. Well, they've got customer businesses down and you're not taking phone calls.
I mean, I don't know the technicalities of what happened. Maybe there was some utterly remarkable breach that is absolutely brand new and nobody saw coming. But I did find it quite fascinating that a company would inform you more or less on the same day, listen, your website's died. We cannot give it back to you, but you just click on this link and start over. Everything will be fine. Just think, wow, that's quite a posture to take, isn't it? As opposed to massive contrition and here's some financial reward because of the mess we've created for you.
I believe, Nathan, somebody had inside credentials, and don't quote me on that one. I think it's one of those. Yeah.
Yeah. What a horrible story, though. I hope nobody listening to this was in any way connected with that. But right, there we go.
What's the rule with backups? 1, 2, 3 or something, isn't it? Like,
yep.
You have
so you need one on the host, one yourself, and then one off site. What I would suggest to anybody is the way I do backups is I take host level backups and I take site level backups. So make sure your eggs are in multiple baskets. And by the way, test your backups before you need them. A lot of people take them and never test that they can restore them. Like, make the time. Yeah.
And the cost of storing data is so cheap now. If you've got a 30-day backup regimen or something, it's not going to cost an awful lot for most websites to be overwriting the database backup periodically. Anyway, there we go. So
if you're using like a third-party builder like Squarespace or Wix or something like that, what do you do if something like that happens to a section on Wix or Squarespace? I don't know. I don't think you'd think, oh no, that surely they can't, that couldn't happen to them, they're too big. But I just don't think anyone is there's always a risk. There's always a risk. So I think the thing with people who own their own websites on WordPress as well, small business owners and stuff, they read the marketing of the theme, they read the marketing of the host, and so far as they understand, they're all sorted. It will say backups, it will say daily or this or whatever. The marketing on the sites is never going to say, but there could be a really bad disaster because, that's just not going to sell their service, I imagine a lot of sites just disappeared and that was the end of them. And it could have been the end of hundreds of thousands of businesses. Like I can, if your small business owner is already exhausted and they're already on the edge, and then that happens, I might just say, that was a message from above. Time to pack it in.
Yeah, but imagine if you had like a profitable, fairly decent business, and it's just gone. It's like somebody burning your shoe shop
research online or something like that. Some medical research or PhD stuff or something just wiped. It could be all wiped and tough learning lesson for those affected. I feel sorry for them. It was making my stomach hurt a bit when we were talking about it because I just that feeling, when I've screwed up and I've got no way out of this.
Yeah.
And even if I come clean, I'm in serious trouble.
Yeah.
Well,
Been
I
there.
think part of the problem is, Paul, people make bad choices. And I know of one case, I won't reveal the client and I won't reveal who, but they came to me and said, your security care plans are too much. I'm gone. And 3 days later, they were hacked and out of business.
Yep.
I've seen it
Oh,
happen. And they came back to me and I said, well, fortunately, I still had a last backup before they disappeared. And I said, I can help you, but there's a cost involved. And they're like, really? I mean, people need to be aware that having a website and maintaining that website and securing that website is the cost of your marketing budget and doing business. And a lot of people don't place a budget on marketing dollars. I see that a lot. And
yeah.
that's part of the problem. We got to keep educating people and say, to survive, you got to have a website. That means you got to maintain the website. You got to update it. You got to back it up. You got to do the plugin updates. You got to do the theme updates. I mean, how many times do you look at a new site that you take on and you say, geez, this hasn't been updated in 6 months. What's wrong here? Right. I think we got to start to do that.
Yeah. The unfortunately, the time is our enemy. We're really quickly running out of time. We've got only 5 minutes or so left. I had this really nice piece that I wanted to mention. This frugal web design, frugal kind of compute thing. But I think I'll save that for another day. But I will mention the link. It's over. Let me just put it on the screen. It's over at, I can't even read that. It's over on GitHub, basically. Somebody's created a website out of GitHub. If you're interested in the environment and the cost of computing, apparently computing and the internet runs to about 2% of all energy use at the moment. So anyway, I was going to mention that, but I don't think I've got time. Because you know what the world needs? The world needs comedy pictures of insects. That's what the world needs. Straight into the not WordPress, but useful anyway. I'm not ashamed to say that I think liquid came out of my body when I saw these pictures. I really, for some reason, this just tickles my fancy. You'll probably watch this, see these pictures as I roll past them and just be like, yeah, that's really funny. But I was in bits as I looked at these pictures, and I don't know why. So here they are. It's on CNN Travel of all places. No idea how this came onto my feed, but here we are. Look, just funny pictures of animals. It's just great. Look at it. It looks like a Muppet, followed by... It's just a cat.
This is great audio content, this part.
I know. It's like a cat that's been, what looks like, imagine firing a cat out of a cannon and it hits a window. How did that cat get there? It's like spread-eagled against the glass. It's just brilliant. And then that one, not so much. It's a picture of a pigeon.
There's a super funny grumpy bird in a minute.
Yeah. This is like what looks like two... What even are they? Are they like... they look a bit like they could be like meerkats or something. That's the right, but it looks like one of them's just fed up and throwing the other one. I don't know what's happened there. There's a fish which looks like it's sort of really surprised by something. She's got this perfectly round mouth, kind of like, "Ooh, look at that." Don't like that one much. Like this one, it's just like, hey. It's a bear trying to look all cool, just sort of lying down, getting in the jacuzzi. Just super angry bird.
That's my favorite.
Can you remember that grumpy cat meme that did the rounds? And that there's this cat, and no matter how they photographed it, it just had a grumpy looking face. This bird takes the biscuit. It's like something out of a science fiction novel. It just looks evil.
Yeah.
Some polar bears, one of them in the background, like being totally ignored. Like, hello, over here, I'm drowning. A bird coming in sideways. And then they're probably less funny from that point on. But I just thought they were lovely.
There's 12, isn't there? There's 12.
Yeah. Go and have a look in the show notes, please. They cracked me up. Right, let's move on. Let's do Paul's one. This, Paul, is fascinating. So it's the world's biggest gaming controller. It's about the size of a bungalow. Why have you put this one in the rundown? What's
Well,
this?
it's either the world's biggest gaming controller or it was created by the elves from Elves and Shoemaker fairy tale fame, or it's just a marketing picture to sort of suggest that a lot of engineering went into this PlayStation controller, which I think it might be that
It
one
might be
actually.
that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's got, could you zoom out just for a minute? I can't remember how to
Oh,
pronounce
yeah.
this thing. I've just put it in as my pick of the week because I've been playing a lot of PlayStation in the last couple of weeks. I'm normally an Xbox player, but I recently bought a PlayStation as well. And I needed a new controller because the one that came with it wasn't very good. And I researched and found this Razer Reiju Ultimate, and it's the best controller I've ever used. I really like the Xbox standard controller. I've also got an Xbox Elite controller. Just in fact, it's here. This is my Office Xbox, and this is
Office
the yeah. I
Xbox,
got a few.
nice.
This is the Xbox Elite controller, but this piece of kit from Razer is just so great to use.
Why is it great? What is it that
It's just perfectly balanced in your
Oh,
hand. The way the buttons press is just so natural. I think this picture where it's showing these engineers working on it is what this picture is saying, is that serious engineering has gone into this. This is kind of like as if Elon Musk created this thing.
right.
It's just so if anyone's got a PlayStation or an Xbox, I think, and you need a new controller, check out the Razer controllers. They are a work of genius.
It's at Razer,
Yeah.
razer.com, and bizarrely, it's got like what looks like the Isle of Man logo on it. It's not quite the Isle of
I
Man
think they're
logo, but it does.
snakes or something.
Oh,
But,
okay. Can I ask a
mm,
question? I'm ignorant.
mm.
Excuse me. Why would you want both an Xbox and a PlayStation? What's the benefit of having both? Do they
Well,
do
we play a
things
lot of
differently?
games in this house, right? We've got 3 Xboxes in this house. Two Series S, 1 Series X.
Okay.
There's 3 Nintendo Switches, and but what happens is it's a bit like the hosting companies buying out the WordPress plugins,
Yeah.
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 So Sony is PlayStation and Microsoft is Xbox, and each of them have certain games that are exclusive to those platforms, and those particular games that are exclusive are often the best games. And so
Oh.
there is a series of games on PlayStation, which is not my first choice. I'm more of an Xbox player, that I really, really wanted to play. So I bought myself a second-hand PS4 Pro because I couldn't get a hold of a PS5, and because it's second-hand, the controller was a bit tatty, and I thought I'll get myself a good controller, and got this, and I'm really pleased with the games that I'm playing on the PlayStation. I'm playing a game called Ghosts of Tsushima at the moment, which is so relaxing for a game all about killing people as a samurai. Um, but it's a fantastic game. I'm really, really pleased with it, and the controller just makes it all the better.
I'm really intrigued because I don't play gaming, but I can well understand that if something's engineered well and it sits perfectly in your hand, you can just totally get it straight away. The difference is, I'm sure, phenomenal. So, does it enable you to, dare I say it, play it better,
Yeah,
or is it just
yeah,
simply
it
it's more
does.
comfortable and you
It
get less
does allow you to
fatigue? Or
play better because
wow,
it has some secret buttons underneath that you can map to certain things. So
I
if
did
you
see
can
that.
see, like the example is, I play a lot of this game called Fortnite with my daughter. She loves playing that. If you go back to the previous picture,
That one.
yeah. So one of the buttons you often press on Fortnite is that on that kind of directional pad over to the far left there
Yep.
is one of those buttons. But you need to take your thumb off that thumbstick on the left for a brief moment when you do it, and it can be the difference between you winning or losing an entire game. So you can map that button that you want to one of your underneath the controller secret buttons, so that you never have to leave, you never have to move your thumb off the main controllers there. So there's little things like that, and so I think all the professional gamers who are in tournaments and stuff like that, they'll use pads like this because this is coming. It's like at the level of the top tennis players like Roger Federer and stuff. It comes down to absolute minute details in advantage. And but just I'm not a professional player, but these little things really help. Um,
That's
I
fascinating.
love good UX. I love good UX, and this pad is all about fantastic UX.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
What a
Mm.
nice way to finish off Paul's stuff today, and then we're back to WordPress for Rob's stuff. Rob's pick of the week is Editor Plus. Why have you picked this, Rob?
So anybody who's been following me on Facebook or more Twitter will know I'm all in with Gutenberg. I'm in the middle of changing my agency site over to Gutenberg blocks, and Editor Plus just makes the block editor a lot easier and adds some functionality. And it would be something I would not move to Gutenberg without. So I would suggest anybody who's complaining about the editor functions in blocks and the text editor and stuff, get Editor Plus. Shout out to Spencer Foreman. He's where I picked this up from. And it was what finally got me in headspace to say, okay, I need to move this site now. So Editor Plus.
We featured it quite a number of weeks in a row, I think, Paul, didn't we? It's Jeffrey Carandang who eventually went over to Extendify and obviously has rolled it into the offering that they have. Yeah, and I played with it right back at the beginning, and it did quite a lot then, and he was talking about the magnitude of what he was going to do. So what's the one thing that's great about it? What one feature do you think is just super cool?
It adds, you can add things like emojis. It just adds a whole new styling to your text that makes it easy. And like, I'm a big one. When I like to do my text, I style it out. So it just makes life easy. So yeah, it's a time saver.
It does animations, typography, spacing, borders, backgrounds, box shadows, visibility, shape dividers, icons, more features to be added to. Cool. So that's press.org/plugins/editor plus. I always say editor, and it's not, it's singular. Editor Plus. That rounds us out. Thank you.
I just quickly ask, is Editor Plus now owned by the same company that owns Redux? Are they all the same, part of the same?
I believe so, but don't quote me.
Yeah. Their websites look quite similar, so it looks to me like I'm pretty sure we covered it when it was acquired.
It's gone. I've forgotten.
So yeah, I mean, they patched that issue quickly, so I mean, it's all good.
Yep.
Okay. They're on the ball, it seems, and this particular plugin does fill a lot of holes that Gutenberg isn't doing on the user experience front, I think.
Yeah. Well, nice pick of the week. 3 nice picks of the week. I still think mine was the best, but there you go. Funny insects. Right, that's it for this week. We've got no more for you. We do actually, but we're just going to leave them as floating tabs, and they'll never be seen ever again. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to share it, then do that. If you don't want to share it, then nah. And if you want to stay informed, go to wpbuilds.com and fill out the subscribe button at the top of the page. I would like to thank Rob for joining us all the way from Toronto. It's bonkers o'clock over there at the moment, so I appreciate him getting up. Also, Paul, who's here every week, thank you very much. And I'll be seeing you in the real flesh.
You on Friday?
Yeah, we're going out to
I'm coming to your house.
of all places.
Have fun.
Nobody will have a clue what that means, but we're going to Boggle Hole, Paul and I and a few other people. So that'll be
maybe
really
we'll turn
nice.
the live stream on for a few minutes.
Oh yeah, we should Boggle Hole live
when we're fishing
on WP Builds from the fishing boat. Yeah. So we'll see you next week. Thank you very much. At this point, Rob, just before we leave, would you mind just giving us a wave, because I like to use that little wave as part of the album art. There we go. Nice one. Thank you very much. We'll see you again next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.